You're a disgrace to this family. My father spat across the dinner table, his face red with fury. Your sister's getting married, and you will pay for it, every single penny. I'm Madison Parker, and this is how I discovered my generosity had been financing my own humiliation for 8 years. That night, my parents demanded I pay $275,000 for my sister Ashley's wedding within 30 days. When I hesitated, my mother slammed her palm on the table. If you won't support this family, then leave and don't come back. Ashley just sat there, smiling. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you are watching from. What they didn't know was that they'd just made the biggest mistake of their lives. Because those papers they'd tricked me into signing 8 years ago, they were about to become their worst nightmare. For 10 years, I'd been the family ATM while Ashley played the golden child. The pattern started when I was 22, fresh out of college with my first analyst job at a boutique investment firm. Ashley was 18, and my parents decided she deserved a gap year in Europe, funded by my signing bonus. Ashley needs to find herself, Mom had explained. You? You already have a job. You have enough. While I worked 80-hour weeks, sleeping on a friend's couch to save money, Ashley posted Instagram photos from Santorini. When she returned, my parents bought her a BMW for surviving such a challenging year. I was still taking the subway at 5 a.m. The requests never stopped. Ashley's Manhattan apartment? She can't live in Brooklyn like you, Madison. She has standards. Her failed fashion boutique? Young entrepreneurs need family support. Her third attempt at grad school? Education is an investment. Meanwhile, my father, Robert Parker, held court as chairman of the Westchester Charity Foundation, hosting galas where he'd introduce Ashley as my daughter, the artist, and me as Madison, she works with numbers. He'd joke to his golf buddies about knowing all the big players in finance, never once asking about my actual work. By the time I turned 32, I'd given them over $400,000, not loans, gifts, because family supports family, as Dad loved to say while adjusting his Rolex at charity events where he played the generous philanthropist. The irony? While they were spending my money, I was quietly building something they never bothered to notice. But more on that later. What mattered that night at dinner was that they'd finally pushed too far. And Ashley's smirk as she slid the wedding invoice across the table? That was the moment everything changed. While my family saw me as their personal bank account, I'd been climbing a ladder they didn't even know existed. From that entry-level analyst position, I'd worked my way up to managing partner at Apex Capital, overseeing a portfolio worth $850 million. The transformation hadn't been easy: 16-hour days, weekend certifications, red-eye flights to Hong Kong. I'd earned my CFA while Ashley was finding herself at Burning Man on my dime. I'd closed deals worth hundreds of millions while my parents complained I couldn't make it to Ashley's pottery show opening. "Oh, you work with numbers. That's nice, dear," Mom would say whenever I tried to explain a major acquisition. Anyway, about Ashley's wedding venue. They never asked why I started flying business class or how I could suddenly afford their endless requests. When I mentioned I'd been featured in Financial Times 40 Under 40, Dad had actually yawned and changed the subject to Ashley's new boyfriend, a promising DJ. The real kicker? My mentor, James Morrison, former Goldman Sachs partner and current board member of 3 Fortune 500 companies, had taken me under his wing 5 years ago. He'd taught me about more than just finance. "Never let them see your full hand, Madison," he'd told me after watching my family dismiss me at a charity event. "The moment they know your worth is the moment they'll try to claim credit for it." So I kept quiet. Let them think I was just Madison who works with numbers, while I built relationships with people whose names made headlines. Let them believe their narrative while I accumulated power they couldn't even comprehend. That blue folder locked in my office safe? It contained more than just financial documents. It held the truth about who really owned what in the Parker family. 8 years ago, I'd made what seemed like a simple mistake. I trusted my father. It was December 2016, and I'd just received my first major bonus, $180,000 after a record-breaking year. Dad had called me into his study with unusual urgency. Just some routine banking paperwork, he'd said, sliding a stack of documents across his mahogany desk. Estate planning, tax optimization. You know how complicated these things get. I was exhausted from a merger that had kept me at the office for 3 straight days. Dad had already filled in most of the information, yellow sticky notes marking where I needed to sign. Your mother and I want to make sure everything's properly structured for the family's investments. The house in Westchester, a sprawling colonial worth $4.2 million even then, had always been described as the family estate. Dad constantly referred to it as our investment at charity functions, boasting about property values and equity growth. Initial here, sign there, he'd directed, barely letting me read. When I tried to slow down, he'd grown impatient. Madison, do you trust your father or not? I've been managing real estate for 30 years. So I'd signed. 7 documents in total. The blue folder went back into his filing cabinet, and I'd returned to my apartment thinking I'd helped with some family tax strategy. For 8 years, that moment haunted the edges of my memory. Why had he been so rushed? Why had Mom stood in the doorway watching nervously? Why did they always change the subject when I asked about the house's mortgage? The answer was sitting in my safe, waiting. A copy I'd quietly obtained 6 months ago when something felt off about their latest financial emergency, but I hadn't opened it yet, afraid of what I might find. Ashley's wedding plans were a masterclass in excess. The Rainbow Room, 65 floors above Manhattan, with its Art Deco glamour and panoramic views. 350 guests, including every society connection my parents had cultivated over the years. Flowers flown in weekly from Ecuador for freshness consultations. A Vera Wang custom gown that cost more than most people's annual salary. $45,000 for the dress alone. It's my special day, Ashley had announced at that dinner, sliding the itemized invoice toward me like she was presenting a business proposal. You owe me this after all these years of being absent from family events. The audacity was breathtaking. I'd missed those events because I was working, earning the money they spent so freely. But in Ashley's mind, shaped by years of our parents' narrative, I was the selfish sister who chose career over family. The kicker? She'd already placed deposits, $20,000 here, $15,000 there, all on the assumption that I'd cover it. The wedding planner had even called my office, confirming Ms. Parker's payment schedule for the remaining balance. It's only money, Mom had said, patting Ashley's hand. Madison has plenty, don't you, sweetheart? The total came to $275,000. Due in 30 days, according to the payment plan Ashley had negotiated without consulting me. The wedding was set for New Year's Eve, just 10 weeks away. Every vendor had been told that Madison Parker, the successful financier, would be handling the bills. I stared at the invoice, watching my father's satisfied smile and my mother's expectant gaze. Ashley was already scrolling through honeymoon resorts on her phone, confident that her ATM sister would deliver as always. They had no idea they'd just triggered their own downfall. The dinner had been orchestrated like a corporate hostile takeover. I realized this when I arrived to find Ashley's wedding planner already there, laptop open, payment portals ready. This wasn't a family dinner, it was an ambush. Dad stood at the head of the table like he was presenting to his charity board. Let's discuss this like adults, he began, pulling out an actual PowerPoint presentation on his tablet. Your family obligations. The slides were insane. He'd itemized every family expense since Ashley's birth, somehow concluding that I'd been underpaying my share for years. There were graphs, charts, even a payment schedule that extended through the next 5 years, covering future family investments. You make 7 figures, Madison, he stated, like he was revealing classified information. It's time you acted like it. Family supports family. Mom chimed in with practiced precision. We sacrifice so much for your education, private schools, SAT tutors, college application consultants, that you paid for with Grandma's trust fund, I said quietly. The room went silent. Dad's face flushed. How dare you? The trust fund that was supposed to be split between Ashley and me, I continued, but somehow only covered my education because Ashley needed hers more. Ashley laughed, actually laughed. God, you're pathetic. Still counting pennies while some of us are trying to live. That's when Dad delivered the ultimatum. You have two choices. Pay for your sister's wedding and start contributing properly to this family, or leave and don't come back. Ever. Mom nodded. Ashley smiled. They'd rehearsed this. I looked at the itemized bill one more time. $275,000, due in 30 days. Then I stood up, pulled out my phone, and typed a single message to Marcus Chen, my lawyer. Pull everything from the Parker estate files, tonight. I didn't explode, didn't argue, just stood there calculating. My mentor James Morrison's voice echoed in my mind. Never show your cards early. Let them think they've won while you plan their defeat. I need time to think, I said calmly, gathering my coat. There's nothing to think about, Dad barked. Yes or no, Madison, are you part of this family or not? 24 hours, I replied. That's reasonable for a $250,000 decision. Ashley rolled her eyes. So dramatic. It's not like you can't afford it. I left without another word, but my mind was racing. In the car, I called Marcus Chen, senior partner at Chen and Associates, and the best real estate attorney in New York. We'd worked together on several acquisitions for Apex Capital, and he owed me a favor from when I'd connected him with a billion-dollar client. Marcus, I need you to pull everything from the Parker estate files, I said the moment he answered. Every document related to the Westchester property, tonight. It's 11 p.m., Madison. I know. Bill me emergency rates. I need those documents within 2 hours. My next call was to my assistant. Pull all financial transfers to Robert and Patricia Parker from my accounts, every single one, go back 10 years. The drive to my apartment took 30 minutes. By the time I arrived, my phone was buzzing. Marcus had sent an encrypted file labeled, Urgent, Parker Estate Documentation. I poured myself a glass of wine, opened my laptop, and began reading. What I found in those documents made me laugh, actually laugh out loud for the first time in years. My family thought they'd won the lottery with their ultimatum. They had no idea they'd just bet the house, literally, and lost everything. The deed transfer document was dated December 15, 2016, clear as day. Madison Parker, sole owner of 47 Woodland Drive, Westchester, New York. Purchase price, $4.2 million. Down payment source, Madison Parker personal funds. Mortgage, none. I'd apparently bought it outright. Marcus, I said, calling him back immediately. Am I reading this correctly? You own the house, Madison. Free and clear. Your signature, notarized, recorded with the county. Your father signed as the seller. But I never bought a house. I signed estate planning documents. Marcus's voice was grim. Those weren't estate planning documents. Your father sold you his house and pocketed the money. Based on these bank records, he used it to pay off massive debts. Gambling, it looks like. About $3.8 million worth. My hands shook as I scrolled through 8 years of property tax payments, all from my accounts, automatically deducted. I'd never questioned them, assuming they were some investment fund Dad had set up. There's more, Marcus continued. Legally, your parents have been living in your house rent-free for 8 years. Market rent for a property like that? $4,000 a month, minimum. That's $384,000 in unpaid rent. Can we prove all this? Madison, it's all public record. The deed, the transfer, the tax payments. Your father committed fraud, technically, but the sale itself is completely legal and binding. You own that house. I stared at the documents. 8 years of lies. 8 years of them living in my house while demanding I pay for their lifestyle. 8 years of calling me selfish while they were literally stealing from me. Marcus, I said quietly, Draw up an eviction notice, 30 days, and calculate the back rent with interest. Madison, they're your parents. They gave me an ultimatum. I'm just returning the favor. Can you imagine discovering your family has been living in your house while treating you like a stranger? If this story resonates with you, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. I share these stories because I know many of you have faced similar situations with family members who take advantage of your kindness. Drop a comment below. Have you ever had to set firm boundaries with family? Your stories help others realize they're not alone. Now let me tell you what happened when I decided to take action. 3 days after the dinner confrontation, an unexpected email arrived. The Westchester Charity Foundation's annual gala, November 15th at the Plaza Hotel. But this wasn't just any invitation. The board was requesting me as a special guest speaker to represent young, successful professionals in finance. The irony was delicious. This was Dad's crown jewel event, where he played king among Westchester's elite. 400 VIP guests, full media coverage, live streamed to donors worldwide. And now they wanted me on stage. I called James Morrison, who happened to serve on the foundation's board. Did you arrange this? Your father has been taking credit for Apex Capital's success for years, James said. Claims he guided your career. Several board members want to meet the real Madison Parker. Plus, Apex just committed $250,000 as a platinum sponsor. We did? You did. My suggestion? Your approval. Check your email from last month. You signed off on it. I had, during a flurry of year-end charitable giving. I hadn't noticed it was Dad's organization. Madison, James continued, Robert has been very vocal about family values lately. Lots of talk about supporting the next generation and the importance of generational wealth. The board wants you to speak about young leadership in finance. Perfect. Dad would have to introduce me, stand there smiling while I took his stage. He couldn't refuse without explaining why his own daughter, the one he'd been bragging about, wasn't welcome. I called Marcus. Can you have the eviction papers ready by November 15th? That's in 2 weeks. I know. And Marcus, prepare a full presentation. Documents, timeline, everything. Make it boardroom ready. The gala where Dad showcased his false generosity would become the stage for truth. He'd built his reputation on my money, in my house, time to collect. The family assault began immediately after I'd agreed to think about their demands. Ashley fired the first shot, a group text to all our relatives with screenshots of wedding venues and a sob story about how I was destroying her dreams. Madison makes millions and won't help with one day of happiness, she wrote. Some sister. Aunt Margaret called within hours. Your mother is in tears, Madison. How can you be so cruel? Then came Mom's daily guilt campaigns, voicemails at 6 a.m. I couldn't sleep thinking about how we failed as parents. Where did we go wrong with you? Texts at midnight. Your father's blood pressure is through the roof. The doctor says it's stress-related. Dad took a different approach. Corporate intimidation. He sent formal letters on Westchester Charity Foundation letterhead, implying I was damaging the family's philanthropic standing. He even had his lawyer friend send a vague threat about family obligations under New York state law. But Ashley's escalation was the most revealing. She sent the actual invoice from the wedding planner directly to my office, marked, urgent, payment required to avoid cancellation. She'd listed me as the guarantor without my knowledge. My assistant intercepted it. Madison, this contract has your forged signature. Fraud. Actual fraud. The wedding planner called next, confused. Ms. Parker, your sister said you'd approve the upgraded package. The flowers alone are now $30,000. I've approved nothing. Please send all contracts and correspondence to my lawyer, Marcus Chen. That evening, a text from Ashley. You're going to ruin everything, just like always. Everyone knows how selfish you are. Even Brad's family thinks you're pathetic. Brad. The DJ boyfriend who'd proposed with a ring suspiciously similar to one that had gone missing from Mom's jewelry box last year. But I kept that observation to myself. For now. 48 hours before the gala, Marcus and I sat in his conference room surrounded by evidence. The mahogany table was covered with documents, each tagged and indexed like trial exhibits. Exhibit A, Marcus said, holding up the deed. Transfer of ownership, December 15, 2016. County seal notarized irrefutable. Exhibit B, 8 years of property tax payments from your accounts. Total, $287,000. Exhibit C, comparative rental analysis. Conservative estimate of $4,000 monthly. Total owed, $384,000. Exhibit D, the forged wedding contracts in your name. He'd prepared everything in a leather portfolio and, at my request, a PowerPoint presentation. Clean, professional, devastating. You could destroy them with this, Marcus said quietly. Not just embarrass, destroy. I don't want destruction. I want truth. I spent the next day rehearsing my speech. Not the one the charity board expected about young leadership, but about real family values, about accountability, about the difference between generosity and exploitation. James Morrison called that evening. Your father's been bragging all week about your appearance, says he's proud his daughter is finally giving back to the community. Has he mentioned the wedding? Constantly. Claims he's hosting the wedding of the season for Ashley. Several board members are invited. Perfect. The higher he built his house of cards, the more spectacular the collapse. I pulled out the eviction notice Marcus had prepared. 30 days to vacate. Standard legal language, but seeing my parents' names as tenants and my name as property owner still felt surreal. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. See you at the gala, sweetheart. Dad has a wonderful introduction planned. Wear something appropriate. I looked at my Armani suit hanging in my closet. Oh, I'd wear something appropriate. Appropriate for serving justice. The Plaza Hotel's grand ballroom glittered with old money elegance. Crystal chandeliers cast golden light over round tables draped in ivory silk. 400 of Westchester's elite mingled with champagne flutes, their diamonds catching the light like scattered stars. Dad stood at the entrance like a king receiving subjects, his custom tuxedo impeccable, his smile practiced. Senator Reynolds, so glad you could make it. You remember my daughter Ashley? Ashley posed beside him in an $8,000 Oscar de la Renta gown, charged to my credit card without authorization, according to Marcus's latest finding. She touched her new engagement ring constantly, making sure everyone noticed the 3-carat diamond. And this, Dad said as I approached, his voice dropping slightly, is Madison. She works in finance. Madison Parker? Board member Harrison Wells stepped forward, eyes widening. The Madison Parker from Apex Capital? Robert, you never mentioned your daughter runs the most successful emerging markets fund in the city. Dad's smile tightened. Well, I don't like to brag. Your daughter manages my pension fund, Harrison laughed. She's made me a fortune. Robert, you must be so proud. Of course, Dad managed, his jaw clenching. More board members gathered, recognizing my name from financial publications. Dad's carefully crafted narrative, Madison the absent daughter, Ashley the family treasure, began cracking as person after person praised my achievements. We're so honored you're speaking tonight, the foundation's president said, shaking my hand. Your insights on wealth management will be invaluable. Behind her, 3 cameras were setting up for the live stream. The foundation's YouTube channel already showed 1,200 people waiting in the chat. The venue's media team confirmed they'd have professional footage available within hours. Mom appeared at Dad's elbow, whispering urgently. Ashley's smile had turned brittle. They knew something was off, but couldn't pinpoint what. They were about to find out. At 8:30 sharp, Dad took the stage. The room quieted as he adjusted the microphone, his presence commanding attention. Behind him, a screen displayed the foundation's logo and this year's theme: Family Values, Building Generational Wealth and Wisdom. Good evening, distinguished friends, he began, his baritone filling the room. Tonight, we celebrate not just charity, but the values that build strong families and stronger communities. He launched into his prepared remarks about generosity, about those who give versus those who only take. The irony was so thick I could taste it. My own family, he continued, gesturing toward our table, exemplifies these values. My daughter Ashley, for instance, understands that true wealth isn't what you keep, it's what you share. Ashley beamed. Mom dabbed her eyes for effect. The audience politely applauded. Some people, Dad said, his eyes finding mine, especially in the younger generation, have forgotten these lessons. They've become so focused on personal success that they've forgotten their obligations to family, to community. Several board members shifted uncomfortably, knowing I was about to speak. But tonight, Dad continued, warming to his theme, we celebrate those who understand that supporting family isn't just a duty, it's a privilege. Which is why I'm thrilled to announce that the Parker family will be hosting the wedding of the season this New Year's Eve, right here at the plaza. Gasps of delight. Applause. Ashley stood and waved like a debutante. A celebration of family values, Dad concluded, funded by family unity. He was actually using my money he expected me to provide, to boost his social standing. The live stream chat was exploding with congratulations. Then the foundation president stood. And now, please welcome our special speaker, Madison Parker, to share her perspective on leadership and legacy. Dad's smile froze as I walked toward the stage, my leather portfolio in hand. I took the microphone with the calm I'd perfected in boardrooms. Thank you, President Williams. And thank you, Dad, for that inspiring speech about family values and generosity. The audience smiled, expecting a dutiful daughter's support. I'd like to share a story about real generosity, I continued, opening my portfolio. 8 years ago, I signed what I believed were estate planning documents. I trusted my father completely. Behind me, the screen changed. Marcus, stationed at the tech booth, had begun the presentation. What I actually signed, I said as the deed appeared on screen, was a purchase agreement. I bought my parents' house for $4.2 million. Gasps rippled through the room. Dad stood halfway, then sat as cameras swiveled toward him. For 8 years, my parents have lived rent-free in my property while demanding I fund their lifestyle. Tonight, they asked me to pay $275,000 for my sister's wedding while living in my house. The screen showed property records, tax payments, the original deed, all public record, all indisputable. This is about more than money, I continued, my voice steady despite Mom's audible sob. It's about truth, about the difference between real generosity and exploitation, about parents who see their child not as a person, but as a bank account. Ashley stood shouting, "You're lying!" Every document is publicly available, I replied calmly. Westchester County Records, file number 2016-4847. The livestream viewer count hit 15,000. Comments flooded in. Several reporters were already typing on their phones. My father spoke about family obligations, I concluded. So let me be clear about mine. Effective immediately, my parents have 30 days to vacate my property. Marcus? Marcus stood, walking toward their table with the eviction notice. Because real family values, I said, include accountability. Marcus reached the family table with the measured steps of a seasoned attorney. The room held its breath as he placed the leather folder in front of my father. "Mr. Robert Parker," Marcus announced, his voice carrying across the silent ballroom, "you are being served with a notice to vacate the property at 47 Woodland Drive, Westchester, New York. You have 30 days from today's date to remove all personal belongings." He turned to the board members' table. "For transparency, I've prepared copies of all relevant documentation for the Foundation's board, given Mr. Parker's position as chairman." Harrison Wells accepted his copy, immediately flipping through. His expression shifted from confusion to shock. "Robert, these documents show you sold the house to Madison 8 years ago." "It's a misunderstanding," Dad stammered, his face purple. Family arrangements. The deed is clear, Harrison interrupted, reading. Madison Parker, sole owner. Purchased December 15th, 2016. $4.2 million. The Foundation's legal counsel, Patricia Hartman, examined her copy. This is all legitimate. County seal, notarization, proper filing. Robert, you haven't owned that house since 2016. On the livestream screen, the viewer count passed 18,000. Comments scrolled rapidly. OMG, the daughter owns the house, and chairman of charity is a fraud. Marcus returned to the microphone. For the record, 8 years of unpaid rent at market rate totals $384,000. Ms. Parker is willing to waive this debt in exchange for immediate cooperation with the vacation order. A photographer from the Westchester Tribune captured Dad's stunned expression. The Foundation's own cameras were recording everything. Ashley tried to grab the documents from Harrison Wells, who pulled them away, shaking his head. Furthermore, Marcus continued, any attempts to harass or defame Ms. Parker will result in additional legal action. The room erupted in whispers. This wasn't just family drama. It was fraud, exposed live. This is a lie, Dad roared, standing so forcefully his chair toppled backward. Madison, how dare you ambush your family like this? Sir, please calm down, security approached, but Dad waved them off. Mom stood, mascara streaming down her cheeks. Madison, we're your parents. How could you humiliate us like this? Ashley grabbed the microphone from a nearby table. She's jealous. She's always been jealous of me. Her voice cracked with hysteria. This is about the wedding. She can't stand that I'm happy. The audience recoiled. Board members stood to leave. The senator's wife whispered to her husband, both looking appalled. You want to destroy us? Dad shouted, pointing at me. Your own family? For what? Money? You destroyed yourselves, I replied calmly into my microphone. I just showed everyone who you really are. Ashley's fiancé, Brad, sat frozen, staring at the documents Harrison Wells was showing other board members. His parents, seated nearby, were already gathering their things. Mrs. Davidson, Brad's mother said loudly enough for cameras to catch, we need to discuss this wedding. We had no idea the Parkers were in this situation. The wedding is happening, Ashley screamed. Madison will pay for it. She has to. Security finally intervened as Ashley lunged toward the stage. 2 officers gently but firmly escorted her back to her seat. Dad tried to follow, but was blocked. Robert, President Williams spoke into her microphone. I think you should leave. The board will be in touch about your position. The live stream chat exploded. Security called. Daughter screaming. Board asking him to leave. 3 board members had already walked out. Others were documenting everything on their phones. The Westchester elite were witnessing the complete destruction of Robert Parker's carefully crafted image. And we weren't done yet. This is the moment where everything changes. When someone finally stands up to their abusers in the most public way possible. If you've ever dreamed of having your moment of vindication, hit that like button right now. And if you think Madison went too far or not far enough, let me know in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to hear how this family tried to retaliate and what happened to that $275,000 wedding. The aftermath is even more shocking than the reveal itself. Within minutes, the grand ballroom transformed from a charity gala into ground zero of Westchester's biggest scandal. 3 board members resigned on the spot, handing President Williams their letters right there at the head table. We cannot be associated with this, Harrison Wells announced. Robert Parker has been living in his daughter's house while using his position to solicit donations. This is unconscionable. The foundation's treasurer, Michael Chen, stood next. I'm calling an emergency audit. Every transaction Robert approved needs review. My phone buzzed constantly. 47 emails in 10 minutes, all from gala attendees. Madison, we had no idea. Your courage is inspiring. Would you consider joining our board? Meanwhile, Ashley's world crumbled in real time. Her phone rang, the wedding planner. She answered on speaker by accident. "Ms. Parker, I've just seen the news. Without guaranteed payment, we're canceling all arrangements effective immediately." "No," Ashley wailed, but the line was dead. Brad's parents approached our table. His mother didn't mince words. "The engagement is off. We won't have our son associated with fraud and public scandal." Brad himself stood silently, pulled off his engagement ring from Ashley's finger, and walked out with his parents. Ashley collapsed, sobbing. The Westchester Tribune Society reporter was typing furiously. Within an hour, the headline would read, "Charity Chairman's House of Cards. Daughter reveals 8-year property fraud at gala." The live stream had captured everything. Viewer count, 32,000 and climbing. The foundation's YouTube channel would later report it was their most watched video ever, unfortunately for Dad. President Williams took the microphone one final time. "Ladies and gentlemen, we apologize for this disruption. The foundation will be conducting a thorough review of the situation. Thank you for your patience and continued support." But the damage was done. Robert Parker's reputation lay in ruins, witnessed by everyone who mattered. The next 48 hours unfolded like a masterclass in consequences. The Westchester Tribune ran the story on the front page. Charity Chief's house scandal. Parker lived in daughter's home while demanding money. By noon, Dad's suspension was official. The foundation released a statement. "Robert Parker has been placed on indefinite leave pending a comprehensive audit of all financial activities during his tenure as chairman." The wedding venue disaster hit Ashley hardest. The Rainbow Room not only canceled but kept the $20,000 deposit since the contract was fraudulent. My forged signature meant Ashley had no legal standing. The florist, photographer, and band followed suit. Within 2 days, her dream wedding had evaporated. Our Westchester neighbors chose sides quickly. The Richardsons, who'd socialized with my parents for 15 years, returned Mom's spare key with a note. "We prefer to distance ourselves from this situation." The country club suspended Dad's membership pending review of conduct unbecoming. 17 relatives called me. The family split into camps, those appalled by my parents' deception versus those who thought I'd gone too far. Cousin Sarah's text summed up the majority view. "We always wondered how Uncle Robert afforded that lifestyle on a charity salary." The live stream replay hit 127,000 views. Comments ranged from "best revenge ever" to "this is why you don't mess with finance people." Someone had already created a TikTok remix of Dad shouting, "This is a lie," that gained 50,000 likes in 6 hours. Marcus forwarded me an email from the IRS. "We're initiating a review of Robert Parker's tax filings for the past 8 years, specifically regarding unreported income from the property sale." Every lie, every deception, every year of taking advantage of me, it was all unraveling at once. And they had no one to blame but themselves. The desperation began with Dad's lawyer sending a formal letter proposing mediation to resolve this family misunderstanding. Translation: they were panicking. Dad's first offer, delivered through his attorney, was insulting. "Robert will acknowledge Madison's ownership if she allows them to remain as tenants at below-market rent." I didn't bother responding. Mom left 23 voicemails in 3 days, each more frantic than the last. "Madison, honey, please. We're being crucified. The neighbors won't speak to us. Your father can't show his face at the golf club. Please, just call me back." "Call me." Ashley tried a different tactic: threats. "I'll tell everyone about that time in college when you—" her text began. Marcus immediately sent a cease and desist, reminding her that defamation carried serious legal consequences. Then came the revelation that shook even me. Brad's family's private investigator, hired to vet Ashley before the wedding, shared their findings with Marcus. Ashley had been taking money from my parents for years while secretly maintaining massive credit card debt. She owed $73,000 across 12 cards. The wedding was meant to impress Brad's wealthy family enough to secure her future. Your sister was planning to file for bankruptcy after the wedding, Marcus explained. Let Brad's family deal with the debt. Brad's mother called me personally. Thank you, Madison. You saved my son from a disaster. We had suspicions, but your revelation gave us the proof we needed. The final desperate play came from Dad himself, breaking the no-contact order. He showed up at my office, security escorting him out while he shouted, "I'm your father! You owe me respect!" The security footage, which someone leaked to social media, became another viral moment. The mighty Robert Parker, reduced to being dragged from his daughter's building. The comments were brutal but accurate. Respect is earned, not inherited. While my family spiraled, my professional life soared. 3 major clients approached Apex Capital within a week of the gala, specifically requesting to work with me. Anyone who handles family betrayal with such composure is exactly who I want managing my portfolio, said Richard Blackstone, CEO of Blackstone Industries, committing $73 million to our emerging markets fund. The Women in Finance Summit invited me as their keynote speaker for next quarter. The topic? Setting boundaries, when personal and professional values align. The speaking fee alone was $50,000. Industry newsletter Finance Forward ran a feature. Madison Parker, the executive who refused to be a victim. The article praised my measured response to extraordinary family exploitation and noted that Apex Capital's AUM had increased significantly since the revelation. My team's respect was palpable. Junior analysts who'd seemed intimidated before now approached me with ideas. You showed us what real leadership looks like, one said. Standing up for yourself even when it costs you. 2 childhood friends I'd lost touch with reached out. Jennifer, now a surgeon, texted, "I always wondered why you distanced yourself. Now I understand. Your parents made you feel like you were never enough. I'm here if you need support." Michael, my high school debate partner, was more direct. "Your dad used to take credit for your achievements even back then. Remember when you won state championships and he told everyone he'd coached you? We all knew it was BS. James Morrison called with the best news. The board wants to offer you a seat on the Westchester Foundation. They need someone with actual integrity to rebuild trust. Every professional gain felt like validation, not just of my success, but of my decision to finally stand up for myself. The market had spoken, authenticity and boundaries were assets, not liabilities. December 3rd, 2:12 p.m. The conference room at Chen & Associates felt like a courtroom. My parents sat across the mahogany table with their lawyer, looking diminished. Gone was Dad's commanding presence and Mom's perfect composure. They looked like what they were, desperate people who'd run out of options. Marcus slid the mediation agreement across the table. Ms. Parker's terms are non-negotiable. The terms were more generous than they deserved. 60 days to vacate instead of 30. Waived back rent of $384,000 if they sign today. No criminal fraud charges filed. 6-month no-contact order. Required family therapy before any future contact. This is extortion, Dad's lawyer blustered. This is mercy, Marcus corrected. Criminal fraud charges would mean prison time. Dad's hands shook as he read. The man who'd commanded boardrooms couldn't meet my eyes. There's one additional requirement, I said, speaking for the first time. A public apology letter acknowledging what you did, to be published in the Tribune. Absolutely not, Dad started. Then we proceed with criminal charges, Marcus said simply. The forged signatures alone are worth 5 years. Mom spoke quietly. Robert, just sign it, please. The room fell silent except for the scratch of pens. They signed every page, initial every clause. When they finished, I stood. I want you to understand something, I said. This isn't about revenge. It's about boundaries. You taught me that family supports family, but you never taught me that support should be mutual. You took and took until there was nothing left to take. That ends today. Dad finally looked at me. You've destroyed us. No, I replied. You destroyed yourselves. I just stopped enabling it. As I left, I heard Mom whisper to Dad, "She's right. God help us, she's right." The detailed conditions of our agreement were designed to be measurable and enforceable. Marcus had drafted them with surgical precision. Page 3, he explained to my parents' lawyer. The public apology must include specific acknowledgments: the fraudulent property transfer, the 8 years of deception, and the pattern of financial exploitation. Mom winced at each word. Dad's jaw clenched tighter. Page 4, family therapy requirements. Minimum 12 sessions with a licensed therapist specializing in financial abuse and family dynamics. Progress reports required quarterly. This is humiliating, Dad muttered. This is accountability, I responded. The conditions continued. Ashley pays for her own wedding, if it happens. No use of my name or position for any references or social purposes. No contact with my employer or clients. Quarterly reviews to assess progress before considering renewed contact. Any violation results in immediate enforcement of the $384,000 debt. Page 7, Marcus continued. Ms. Parker retains the right to modify these terms if there's evidence of continued harassment or defamation. Ashley hadn't come to the mediation. She was reportedly too distraught. But her signature was required on the no-contact order. She'll never sign, her lawyer said. Then she'll face charges for the forged wedding contracts, Marcus replied. 3 counts of fraud, each carrying potential jail time. The leverage was clear: sign and rebuild, or refuse and face destruction. One final condition, I added. The house at 47 Woodland Drive will be sold or occupied by me. You're never to attempt entering the property again after move-out. Dad's face crumpled. That house had been his pride, his symbol of success. Now it would stand as a monument to his deception. These terms are valid for 48 hours, Marcus concluded. After that, we proceed with all legal options. They had 2 days to choose between humiliation and annihilation. Even facing total ruin, they couldn't help but resist. Dad tried negotiating every single clause through his lawyer, as if this were a business deal rather than consequences for fraud. The public apology is too detailed, his lawyer argued. Can't we simply say family misunderstanding? No, Marcus replied flatly. Mom played her usual card: health manipulation. 2 days after mediation, she checked herself into Westchester Medical with stress-induced chest pains. The diagnosis? Anxiety. The bill she tried forwarding to me? $3,200. Ashley's resistance was more vicious. She couldn't contact me directly, so she sent messages through cousins. Madison destroyed our family. She's evil. She's jealous. She wanted everything we had. The irony of that last accusation, claiming I wanted what was literally mine, wasn't lost on anyone. Reality hit them hard when the movers arrived for estimates. The house's contents, accumulated over 8 years on my dime, would require 3 trucks. The cost to move and store everything? $15,000 they didn't have. I learned from Aunt Margaret that Dad was secretly liquidating everything: his Rolex collection, Mom's jewelry, even his prized golf clubs. The charity investigation had frozen his accounts pending audit results. They were surviving on credit cards. Their apartment hunting was equally harsh. With Dad's reputation destroyed and no employment verification, landlords demanded 6 months' rent up front. The best they could afford was a 3-bedroom in Yonkers, a far cry from Westchester's manicured lawns. They came to see a unit in my building. My former college roommate texted, "Your mom cried in the parking lot when she saw the size." The mighty Parkers, who'd spent years living above their means in my house, were finally facing their means, and their means were modest at best. December 20th, 4:47 p.m., 13 minutes before the deadline. They signed. The signing took place in Marcus's office. My parents looked hollow, defeated. Ashley, forced to attend, hadn't spoken to them in a week after Brad's family threatened a restraining order if she continued her harassment campaign. "Initial here," Marcus directed, pointing to each page. "Sign here and here." The public apology letter was the hardest for Dad. His hand hesitated over the signature line where he had to acknowledge deliberately deceiving my daughter Madison regarding the true nature of property transfer documents in 2016. "This will be in the Tribune," he said flatly. "Tomorrow's edition," Marcus confirmed. "They're holding space on page 3. Ashley signed her no-contact order with tears streaming. "I hate you," she whispered to me. "I know," I replied calmly. "Maybe someday you'll understand this was about accountability, not hate." The final document was unexpected. I'd established a prepaid therapy fund of $25,000 for their required sessions. "Why?" Mom asked, looking at the fund paperwork. "Because I want you to get better," I said simply. "Not for me, for yourselves. You've been living a lie for so long you've forgotten what truth feels like." As they prepared to leave, Dad turned at the door. For a moment, the mask dropped completely. "I was drowning," he said quietly. "The gambling debts. I was going to lose everything. When you signed those papers, I told myself I was saving the family." "You could have asked for help," I replied. "Instead, you chose to steal from your daughter and then demand more." He nodded, seeming to age 10 years in that moment. "I know. God help me, I know." They left in silence. The papers were signed. The boundary was set. The healing, if it ever came, could finally begin. January 15th, 2025. The moving trucks arrived at 47 Woodland Drive at 8 a.m. sharp. I watched from my car down the street, present enough to ensure everything went smoothly, distant enough to maintain boundaries. 3 trucks, 47 boxes, and a lifetime of pretense being packed away. The movers were professional, efficient, treating this like any other job. They had no idea they were dismantling a house of lies. Through Marcus, I'd learned the details of their new life. A 3-bedroom rental in Yonkers, $2,200 a month. Dad had found consulting work. Nothing prestigious, just enough to cover basics. Mom was selling her designer bags on consignment. Ashley had moved back with them after being evicted from her apartment for non-payment. The neighbors watched discreetly from windows and driveways. The Richardsons, who'd returned Mom's spare key, stood in their garden pretending to tend winter roses. 8 years of social standing, dissolved in 8 hours of packing. The mover's supervisor called Marcus at 4 p.m. Family was cooperative but silent throughout. No incidents. Property has been vacated and cleaned per agreement. That evening, I walked through my house, truly mine for the first time. Their presence lingered like ghosts. The indent in Dad's favorite chair, Mom's roses in the garden, Ashley's teenage artwork still on the refrigerator. I kept none of it. The furniture would be donated, the personal items stored until they could afford to retrieve them. The house would be renovated, transformed into something new, something honest. Standing in what had been Dad's study, I found a family photo from 2015, before the deception, before the theft. We looked happy. Maybe we even were, briefly. I placed it in a box marked storage. Someday, perhaps, it might mean something again, but not today. June 15th, 2025. 6 months had passed since the gala that changed everything. The neutral coffee shop in White Plains felt appropriate, public enough for safety, private enough for conversation. They looked different, smaller somehow. Dad's hair had gone completely gray. Mom had lost the artificial polish that had defined her for years. Ashley wasn't there. She'd refused to come, still clinging to her anger. "Hello, Madison," Mom said quietly. "Thank you for agreeing to meet." Marcus had confirmed they'd completed 14 therapy sessions. Dr. Patricia Henley, their therapist, reported significant progress in acknowledging patterns of financial abuse and entitlement. "How are you?" I asked, genuinely curious. "Surviving," Dad answered honestly. "Working, going to therapy, learning things about myself I never wanted to see." His consulting work paid $65,000 annually, a fraction of his former lifestyle, but honest money. Mom had taken a part-time job at a boutique, her first employment in 30 years. Ashley? I asked. She's struggling, Mom admitted. Still angry. Still blaming everyone but herself. She's working retail, living with us. The wedding never happened. Brad's family threatened legal action if she contacted him again. We talked for exactly 1 hour, the time limit I'd set. They didn't ask for money, didn't manipulate, didn't guilt. Progress. The house? Dad asked carefully. Being renovated. I'm moving in next month. He nodded, something like acceptance in his eyes. It's beautiful. You'll be happy there. As we prepared to leave, Mom handed me an envelope. We don't expect you to read it, but we wanted you to have it. Inside, later, I found a letter. A real apology. Not the public one required by law, but a private acknowledgement of the pain they'd caused. It was a start, just a start, but more than I'd expected. Looking back now, I understand what this journey really taught me. Family isn't about obligation. It's about mutual respect and genuine care. You can't buy love with money any more than you can demand it with DNA. The professional world had embraced my story. I'd spoken at 3 conferences about leadership and boundaries, each time to standing ovations. The message resonated. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to enable dysfunction. You gave us permission to say no, a young executive told me after my Stanford Business School talk. My family calls me selfish for having boundaries. Your story showed me that's their projection, not my reality. Some relatives understood. Cousin Sarah started therapy after witnessing our family's implosion. If Uncle Robert could deceive you for 8 years, what lies am I believing about my own life? She'd asked. Others didn't. Aunt Margaret still sends birthday cards addressed to the daughter who destroyed her family. I donate them to my therapist's collection of toxic family artifacts. Apparently, it's quite common. The truth is, I didn't destroy my family. I revealed what was already broken, like turning on lights in a hoarder's house. The mess was always there, just hidden in darkness. My chosen family, friends who celebrated my success without demanding payment, colleagues who respected my boundaries, James Morrison who mentored without manipulating. They showed me what real support looks like. Family is the people who want your happiness without needing to own it, Dr. Henley had said during our single joint session. My parents had nodded, finally beginning to understand. I don't celebrate what happened, but I don't regret it either. Sometimes the greatest act of love is teaching people that love isn't measured by what you can take. It's proven by what you give freely, without expectation of return. The renovated house barely resembled the museum of pretense it had been. I'd torn down walls, literally and figuratively. The dark, heavy furniture was gone, replaced with light, clean lines. The study where Dad had deceived me was now a library filled with books on psychology, finance, and healthy relationships. Every Thursday, I hosted dinner for my real family. Friends who'd stood by me, colleagues who'd become confidants, even Dr. Henley who'd become a trusted advisor. The dining room that had witnessed that terrible ultimatum now rang with genuine laughter. The house value had increased to $4.8 million after renovations. But that wasn't the real value. It had become a home built on truth rather than a monument to lies. My charity work continued, but with a different organization, one that helped young adults escape financial abuse. We'd helped 43 people in 6 months, teaching them to recognize manipulation disguised as love. My parents were slowly rebuilding. Dad had joined a gambling addiction support group. Mom volunteered at a thrift shop, learning the value of money for the first time. Ashley remained Ashley, but that was her journey to make. The door for reconciliation stayed open, but with clear glass walls. They could see in, I could see out, but crossing the threshold required mutual respect, honest communication, and maintained boundaries. Standing in my kitchen one evening, preparing dinner for friends, I realized something profound. I hadn't just reclaimed my house, I'd reclaimed my life. Every room, every choice, every relationship was now built on a foundation of truth. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give your family is teaching them you won't be taken for granted. And sometimes the greatest gift you give yourself is learning that you deserve better than being someone's ATM with a heartbeat. The house was mine, the life was mine. The future, finally, was mine to build. Thank you for watching Madison's story of standing up to family financial abuse. If this resonated with you, please subscribe and hit the notification bell for more stories about setting boundaries and finding your worth. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that it's okay to say no to family. What would you have done in Madison's position? Let me know in the comments below. And remember, you can't pour from an empty cup. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is teach people how to treat you. See you in the next video.